Hi there, and welcome back to the CKM Red Rugby League channels and the Red Star Rugby League channel as well. It is an exciting day. It is Grand Final week. It is upon us. Partizan versus Red Star this Saturday. It's a huge game. How are you going, mate?
Mate, I'm going very well. It's Eternal Derby V3, V4 this year. And it's quite possibly the most exciting of the lot. It is the grand final. I mean, what else is there to say? Come on, let's go.
It's a huge week. Obviously, it is Partizan versus Red Star. It is the Eternal Derby. It is the Serbian Grand Final. So we are here to take you through all the team news so far. Obviously, no teams have been released yet, but we do have a good idea how both sides will line up. We have a few key matchups, some predictions for the game, and obviously we can go over some of the past form as well as some of these clubs and try and give you some insights into the Serbian Rugby League and give our thoughts. I mean, obviously, Partizan started the year as a house on fire. They came into the last Red Star meeting as an undefeated favourite, and then Red Star hit the straps and put 40 points over them, 40 points to 4 in their last meeting in the finals round robin. So how much of an effect do you think that's going to have on Partizan coming into this game?
Oh, it's going to be massive, isn't it? They were taking it to Red Star, had a 2 or 3 game winning streak, and realistically were the favourites last time out. And Red Star, under the new guys at the time of Eddie Pettybourne, came out stronger. They took it to Partizan. They shut out exactly what we'd spoken about previously. They'd shut out that run through the middle. It didn't give Partizan that option to spread the ball out wide in the attacking 20. I think it's had a huge knock-on effect. You've seen Partizan have some pretty good results bouncing back, mind you. They had a 72-8 win against the South Region. They pumped Radnički Nice, but as we saw last week, and you can find this game exclusively on the CKM Red Recast channel, I wouldn't say scraped through against South Region in the Balkan Super League semi-finals, but it wasn't convincing. It was, granted, a South Region side boasting 2 Greek internationals who had come out for the game, but it wasn't a convincing Partizan side. And I think part of that is that knock-on effect from that 40-4 loss against Red Star a couple of months ago. And you have to think, Matt, coming into this one, Red Star know that if they can even remotely come close to replicating what they did, I think it was last month or at the end of September, they're a red-hot chance of taking this final.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the boys have not stopped working. They've continued to show up and create a positive playing group and atmosphere at training going into these big games. The boys are obviously a little disappointed that they've only played one game in the last, 3 months or so, with cancellations of games. And Partizan was their last real test with that 118 points to 0 win over Lokomotiv Sofia last week. So, I mean, Partizan in that respect have had the more competitive competition. They did fulfill fixtures against Dortchol and Radnički Nice, as you mentioned there. A few Partizan players missing last week for that trip to South Region. A bit of a tactical decision. Some of the juniors opting to play, but this was still a Partizan side that had their influential captain in Steva Stevanovic, they're running the show in 13. And, the big man in the middle, Dusan Milutinovic, who's going to be a strike weapon up the middle as he always is. And this is a big Partizan setup and a big Partizan side that like to play with that ferocity and that tenacity that makes them so difficult to put down and really makes them a challenge for what is definitely a smaller Red Star size. Red Star is you only have to look up and down the teams to see that Partizan have size on their side, but Red Star came with physicality and dominated tackles and making those first few steps really count, coming off their defensive line and in those danger areas that force Partizan to kick from deep or created errors or just, earned them the chance to get downfield just with that intensity.
Yeah, very much so. And you can go back and look at the highlights video and go through the game as it was. Red Star, like I said, they came at Partizan early. They shook them up. You could tell that Partizan were frazzled. And whilst, yes, Red Star are a bit of a smaller side in comparison to that of Partizan, what they lacked in size, they made up well and truly in just nitty-gritty defense, in all-round stamina in the end. And you saw in the last 20 minutes, I think it was 20-4, I think, at the 60-minute mark. And, you and I have seen countless times, this is a Partizan side that can put on 12 or 18 points in back-to-back-to-back sets. So you could never write them off. But, I think it was the little shift down the right side that Eddie Pettyborn created. Didn't touch the ball, but created the attention with the dummy. We got right side to Milovanovic, I think it is.
Yeah.
And then he gives it back inside to Milosogovic. He charges through, scored. I think that was his third try of the day, and that was curtains. So Red Star will have to line up early, and if they let Partizan through early, it's danger signs all around. But if they can hold Partizan out for that first 20, I think what you'll see is that stamina that Eddie Pettyborn has brought across from Elite One, has brought through from his Super League and NRL days. You'll see that start to shine in the back end of the first half.
Yeah. This is the thing. Eddie's created a very physically strong culture within the team, but that is not from hours in the gym. That is mentality. He has given the team a winning mentality. But players doing extras after training. Vladimir Dedic, one of the players that we're going to talk about in the key matchup, loves a Malcolm. Absolutely loves a Malcolm at the minute. Sticking around after training, getting that extra pace back. He makes no secret of this is the most confident that he's ever felt. He feels like he could go anywhere in the world right now and stake a claim to a 9 shirt. And based on how he played in Euro B, I don't doubt that. I really don't doubt that. I think he's unfortunate not to be on that short list for the Golden Boot nominees based on how he played in Euro B. But one of the players who did make the short list, one of Partizan's, Georgia Conetto, we'll talk a little about him. Obviously was used quite heavily during the Serbian under-20s campaign. Made a real impression. He's been a mainstay of the Partizan side now for well over a year. He's one of the best and young up-and-coming props in the competition, and he's really staked his claim to that. And this Golden Boot nomination is more than justified for him.
Yeah, very, very much so. I'm trying to think of a comparison here for him. Am I wrong to call him the Payne Haas of Serbian Rugby League?
He's a workhorse. He gets around. He goes through the meters. He's good for runs, and you've seen players come off second best out of contact. Georgia Conetto's not a big man. He's just very stocky and runs like he's bomb-proof. Every single time, every single one of his carries, he runs hard, he runs straight. And like I say, he's not one of the biggest men on the field, but he certainly carries himself like he is.
So is a Brandon Smith. Right, gotcha. No, very well deserved. Has been one of Partizan's best for the last 12 months. As you mentioned, a big part of that under-20s campaign that ended up being an undefeated campaign, I believe, for the Serbian side. 7 internationals, I think it was in the end. Had a stake in the Euro B side that got promoted to Euro A. So he's going to be a tough one. Red Star, and it's not saying that Red Star haven't got the men to match up to him. I'll let you talk about Milos Charlic a little bit, but he's going to be bloody sore on Monday. Tell you what, coming up against the Golden Boot nominee for Serbia.
Yeah, I mean, Red Star do pack a punch up the middle, obviously. If we're going to be talking about young props, you can't look past Marko Yankovic. He's only in his early 20s still, but being around the system now at Red Star for a number of years, was involved in that 2019 Challenge Cup side that came to the UK. So he's really been about, and this is definitely Marco's best season. We're seeing improvements in the likes of Uros Martinovic, who, has been a bit of a fringe player in the last 2 seasons, but this season he's come in and he's been there, comes in, makes up those post-contact meters. He's a big physical body. We've seen him dominating tackles, using that large frame to slow people down. As you mentioned, Milos Čalić, the guy's fend is just ridiculous. You will see it week in, week out. He will plant the hand on somebody and they will disappear from camera shot. He's just a very strong runner. He's very aware of where the points are, the leverage points on a person are to get them off you pretty quickly. And yeah, this Partizan side are gonna have their work cut out with this Red Star setup, and they've got strong runners as well in Enis Bibic and Conetto and Stojilkovic, all in that front row setup, and Steva Stevanovic, the linchpin of that Partizan forward pack in the 13 shirt. Big man, using very similar to how Red Star use Stefan Nedeljkovic, Siler, creating those plays, working as an outback runner, hitting a turn-up ball here and there. So for big men, they are used more effectively as ball players, and it's going to be a physical contest. It is going to be really, really physical, and Partizan are probably going to try and draw Red Star into playing up the middle, because that's where Partizan make their money. Your Dusan Milutinoviches, who come hard and straight onto a ball, easily take up 20 metres at a time with how big and physical he is. Steva Stevanovic working to the edges, Conetto, Bibic, all those love a little bit of an arm wrestle up the middle. So if Red Star are going to get Partizan out of their systems here, they're going to need to work to the edges. And that brings us to another one of our key matchups in Raikko Trivinovich versus Vladimir Milutinovic. Vlada, the brother of Dusan there, one of the best players in the Serbian setup. He has played 6 as well. So he's got a good pair of hands on him, but he runs hard, he runs straight, he's in the shape of his life. He's now a personal trainer, which means that he's got plenty of time to be working on his fitness, and you see that now in his ball playing and his ability on the field. He was definitely adept at breaking tackles before, but he just seems to have found another gear this season.
Yeah, very, very much so. And the versatility that you mentioned has played in the halves is, I think, as he lines up, I've got to do math here. I think, is he a left centre? Just thinking of the numbers there. I know Raikko plays on the right side typically, but the versatility that he has in the halves means he's got a little bit of a deft kicking game as well. He's maybe not a third option, but a fourth option if play breaks down on last, if they shift left side and there's nothing going on. There's an option there, much like how Will Chambers would be when he was kind of at his peak at the Storm. Chambers had just enough of a kicking game that you don't go to him as a reliable kick option, but if there's nothing going on, 10 metres out, here you go, Will, here's the ball, do something with it. That's kind of that advantage that you have of having experience in the halves and then playing in the centres. But Raikko Trivinovich comes back after really that couple of month break, after the international break there, off of injuries, scores a double. First game back, I believe. You wouldn't have thought that he'd been off for 4 months. You would not have thought it.
Yeah, and Raikko obviously coming back from that spell in France as well. It's done him the world of good. He was never short on confidence beforehand, and he comes back now. We've seen the Goanna come out a couple of times as a little bit of homage there to Eddie Pettiborn's days at Souths with GI. But, it's just ridiculous to see Raikko in the form that he's in at the minute. He's breaking tackles, making those big hits, coming in, looking for work. And it's just great to see him coming back to his best and going through more and more iterations. And the time in France has only brought him on more as a player, and he was already very talented. Raikko, again, another player that's still in his early 20s, but feels like he's been around the system for a long time. And, the Trifunovic family, run deep within Red Star. His little brother Luca is in the Red Star Juniors setup, playing in the halves at the minute. So, we've got plenty more Trifunoviches in the system coming through. But at the minute, Raikko is the one that we are discussing, and it's going to be an interesting matchup between him and Vladimir Tunovic. And depending on how things line up, it'll either be Selamovsky or potentially Milovanovic, who's outside of him, depending on how the wingers line up. Or, we've even got a third option now in Alexander Steflu, who's come back from a tour of Asia, played a little bit of rugby league out there off the back of getting a skateboarding deal. Again, athletic individual, came back,
Okay.
scored a double last week in that win over Lokomotiv Sofia. 2 pretty good tries, finishing up team moves. But again, there's options there. There's depth in the back, and Red Star are going to utilise that definitely.
Okay, let me pose this question to you. Selamovsky, his spot's probably sewn up. We'll assume that. Do you go with the man who comes back, plays against Lokomotiv Sofia, scores 2 tries in an absolute rout, but then put him second game up against a Red Star Belgrade side? Now remember, you're already Pettyborn in this case. Or do you go with the young fella who's come through the academy, has played the whole season, played much bigger than he is? Milovanovic is not a big boy, but what he lacks in size, he's made up in just pure grit, determination. Yeah, a strong defender, has polished off plenty of plays quite well. That's a tough decision if you're Eddie Pettyborn.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that Eddie's really lucky with now, and that is the depth in the backs. You've got Valentino there, back from injury, missed 4 months with a tendon injury in his wrist, as you saw last week in that game, when he scored 2 tries, had the wrist quite heavily strapped. No word out of the club as to whether he's still carrying that injury, but I think it's more wrapped as a precaution. But even so, Valentino, off the back of having surgery as well, has come back and he plays hard. He's never been a player that's really feared anybody. He came in as a scrappy youngster, and he's there. He's making his presence known, and I think that Valentino is definitely probably going to feature on the wing there. But again, my job is not to pick the side. Eddie knows based on how players train and the things that they do through the week that earns their spots. But there's competition for spots now. Nobody's going to be sat back and waiting for their number to be picked. We've not seen Dennis Chengai now for a hot minute, and he was playing very well. We've seen Petar Milanovic come back into the fold off the back of some personal things off the field that kept him away from the game. And it's great to see him back and even bagging the opening try last week. So there's options all over the pitch. There is plenty of depth, and Red Star are lucky in that respect. And again, that comes from the development of the youth. The same way that Partizan are not strapped for talent. They sent 4 or 5 of their juniors to that game in the South region last week, and still came away with a win. It was a tighter game than many expected, but they still went out and they did the job. So the development of Serbian talent is crucial. It's key, and we're seeing more and more of that Serb talent coming through the ranks here with the likes of the Partizan juniors and the Red Star juniors as well.
And we mentioned this last week in the pre-game show. Colin said that Partizan's under 18s are some of the best U18s going around outside of Australia and the UK. That is an insanely strong academy side that they've got, and Red Star the same with their under 16s. You've got some of those 16s that are playing up in the 18s and the 19s because they can, and because they're adept at doing so. Looking at the here and now for Serbia, and we haven't even gone through what I think are the 2 key players for Red Star. We'll get to that in a second. But looking at the here and now, Serbian football as a whole, you've got Partizan and Red Star. They're your two big guns, but you've got Dortmund who's starting to make waves. You look at the Serbian Super League and the Balkan Super League, but our neighbours in Montenegro at the South region, they've come on in leaps and bounds this year. Radnički Nice, they attracted two of the Turkish internationals who were outstanding for them in the first half of the season. You've got, we had Tirana and Lokomotiv Sofia. Yeah. Blank. You had a blank there for a second. We've had them come along, and yes, okay, the Lokomotiv Sofia game was a bit of a blowout. You'll call that one as you see it, but it's still amazing to see that there is this growth not only within Serbia but within the Balkans and within rugby league. Serbia into Euro A next year, massive for Serbian rugby league. They now have and will, in all likelihood, get an opportunity to go against your Italies, your Greeces, your Scotlands. The chance is there. Look, we could see a Serbia-England game, the Serbia-England Knights game in the not too distant future. This is really, really promising stuff for Serbia, as realistically they look towards a potential 2025 World Cup berth. The players are there, the academy's there.
And it's a lot of it is homegrown talent as well. I think if you were to pit these Serbian teams just based on domestics, no fly-ins, no nothing, you're looking at Serbia being a top 10 nation comfortably. Like if you were, Australia's obviously got their domestic pool, England, and then you look to your Papua New Guinea, New Zealand, Tonga, and then realistically it's France and probably Serbia. Like the Turkish scene's coming on really well. We talked a little bit there about the Balkan Super League. Turkish teams have not been able to participate this year, which is unfortunate because Kadıköy made it to the semi-finals last year. In 2019. Greece, there was no Greek teams this year, but the Rhodes Knights were in Red Star's group and put up a really good fight. So there's plenty of development going on there. We'll get back to this game though. You alluded to one key matchup that we've not missed there. I'll let you talk on this one.
Oh, I mean, you call it a key matchup. I call it the two most influential players outside of Stefan Nedeljkovic in this Red Star side, and it's the Dedić brothers, Voja and Vlada. I'm going to put it bluntly. If Partizan cannot find a way to shut them down, if they don't go back and watch the game against Russia and the game against Ukraine in that Euro B competition, we know some of the boys played with him. We know... I spoke about him before we jumped on.
Dragan Yankovic.
Thank you. I knew it was Yankovic. I forgot the first name. Dragan Yankovic. Yeah, he was lights out for Serbia. One of the best. Probably was second best behind Vlada. Personally, that's what I think with Voja in third for that Euro B campaign. But he knows exactly how these two play. He's seen it for the best, he was in the best seat possible. He was running behind both of those boys. He saw, now I'm going to get confused. Vlada plays 6,
9.
Voja plays 9. Vlada plays 9. I'm sorry, boys. I'll get there. I promise I'll get there. It is 10:30 in Australia as we record. Vlada was just insane out of dummy half. You cannot give him a quick play the ball. Partizan have to force the wrestle. I'm giving you free tips here, boys. I am giving you free tips. You have to win the wrestle. If you win the wrestle, you don't give that opportunity for Vlada to go out of dummy half with one marker or no markers, because that's an easy 10 meters. You then have the likes of Uros Martinovic, who you spoke about briefly, Stefan Nedeljkovic, Milos Sogovic, Raikko Trivinovich, coming through those gaps. And that's not discounting anyone else in the Red Star side. But if you can't nullify that dummy half, Partizan will lose. It's as simple as that. You then go to Voja. He is, for for a man who plays at a second receiver, you could almost argue that he could put a team on his back no matter where he plays and be just as impactful. Voya is, for the most part, safe as houses. He's got the odd error in him, but you can see how much he's improved from the start of the Serbian Super League. He's developed a little bit of a kicking game. He's developed that dummy that we see Stefan Nedeljkovic use time in and out. He's got a brilliant passing game, more so, I think, to his left than he does his right. He's very lethal on the left-hand side, and that's going to be brilliant for Raikko, because those two, I think, will team up quite nicely. But they've got to be able to shut him down at second receiver. If they're not going to shut him down, they at least, and by they I mean Partizan, they have to be able to slide in defense and nullify the threat from Raikko and Milovanovic Valentino. They have to be able to nullify that threat. Force him to kick. Don't allow him to pass to Raikko, because if you pass to Raikko, more often than not, he's through. I've given you the game plan. That's how I think Red Star are going to play. They're going to go run first with Vlada. If he can't run, he'll shift. He'll find Stefan Nedeljkovic at first receiver. We know what Stefan can do. He can dummy and go straight through a gap. He can throw a cutout ball and he'll go straight to Raikko. Or he can go out the back and you'll see the halves in action. That's the game plan. Run first, pass second, and if they pass, they're going to spread. How do you, Matt, knowing how Red Star plays, if you're Partizan's coach, how do you nullify that?
The way you nullify that system is you make sure your markers are square. The Vlada is one of the most eyes-up hookers going around the European circuit. He spots, we saw it, we called it out in one of our strategical analysis and play-by-play analysis. Vlada literally pointed to the gap he was going to run through. He pointed where he was going and the defence still didn't stop him. And that came from markers committing to the same direction. You need to firm up your markers. Get a player working the outside hip. Get a hand on the outside hip and say, you shift, I'm sticking, and then I'm going to the left. As soon as the markers split the same way, if the markers go left, Vlada's going to go to his left, and now all of a sudden you've got an extra playmaker in open field, and that's going to create the problems. It's going to be a real problem if they can't shut that down. Get firm around the markers. Working the ground is going to be important, as you say, making sure there's not those quick play the balls. We've seen it with the likes of Milos Čalić. Milos Čalić is very good at hitting his front. Uros is very good at hitting his front. Marko Yankovic, very good at getting to ground fast and getting back up, taking the wrestle out the game, invite the tackle so that the next person can get the wrestle. And that's where you're making money. That's where you're making meters. So if Partizan are going to stay in this game and they're going to take it to Red Star, the first 10 minutes are going to be key. They need to set a precedent, which is no penalties, no easy meters, engage the floor, get a feel for the referee. At any level, every single coach I've ever played under has said in the first 10 minutes, work out a referee. Hold down for an extra second or so just to see whether he'll let it slide. Work the play of the ball. Keep a hand on the ball if you need to. But just slow things down and see whether the referee punishes you for it. Because if he lets it go in the first 10 minutes, he's going to let it go for the rest of the game, which invites you to slow the game right down. Now, slowing the game down might not be one of the best things to do for Partizan, because we've seen Red Star thrive in open field off the back of unset play, but we've also seen that they can thrive off set play with the likes of Nikola Djuric punching gaps left, right, and centre, just working off Vojvodic's shoulder. And that happens week in, week out. So Partizan's slide is going to be important. They're going to need to make sure they're not over-chasing on individuals. Everyone stick to their assignment. Everyone stick to their man. Don't look at it as Stefan Nedeljkovic has the ball or Vojvodich has the ball. Look at it as the person opposite me does not have the ball yet. Okay, now the person opposite me has the ball. Now I commit out the line. The second that players go looking for individuals, you have created a gap in the line, and that is the easiest to exploit.
All right. I'm putting you on the spot. Who wins? How much?
Red Star 13+. I reckon it's tight.
Ooh.
I think it's tight all the way to the final 20 minutes, and then that extra little bit of stamina and that extra little bit of mentality gets Red Star over the line.
Ooh. You jumped on that real quick.
I'm confident. I say it with chest.
All right. I'll say it a little louder for the boys and the girls in the back. Red Star 13+. But I don't think it's going to take until the 60th minute. I think Partizan come out firing because they want to make amends for what happened last time out at Inge. And because of that, one of two things will happen. Now, I'm happy to fall on my sword because, look, Partizan are a stellar side. They're going to bring back some more senior players this year who are going to be refreshed, and they're going to have in their heads, they're going to know exactly what happened 3 months ago. They either come out firing and they make a mistake or two, and Red Star capitalize, and it's going to be 12-0 in about 12 minutes, and you can call it game over there. Or Partizan don't make those mistakes. Partizan score first, and Red Star do something they haven't had to do for a hot minute, and that's come from behind. I don't think I've yet to see an Eddie Pettyborn-led Red Star Belgrade side come from a deficit. They've always been in front. I am very curious to see what happens if they are on their own try line first. But I'm still going Red Star 13+.
Okay. Well, I think we are going to wrap there. We've given our tips and predictions on this one. It is Red Star versus Partizan, the Eternal Derby, the Serbian Grand Final. It is live and exclusive on Recast. Go to recast.app and search for CKM Red Rugby League, or click the link in the CKM Red Rugby League description on Facebook, and that will take you straight through to that game. And we hope that you'll be joining us live from Stadion Here Polet in the beautiful city of Belgrade on Saturday at 2 p.m. Thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you before the game on Saturday for our pre-game show. See you then.